Right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Tech Summit 2021 here in Bermuda. It's absolutely fantastic to have everybody join us today. We've got an excellent and exciting panel ahead where we're going to explore a little bit more around transforming the regulatory landscape and what that really means, especially kind of now we're coming out of COVID or we're moving towards a recovery. So very, very excited. I have a fantastic panel with me here today, as I mentioned. We've got the BMA here, we've got Aqsa, who is representing the BMA. We've got Jerome from Appleby. We've got Jeff Bittrex from Bittrex as well. And of course, we've got Dmitri as well from 24 Exchange. So a fabulous panel that is going to walk us through what is happening within the regulatory space. I think to just kick off, one of the things that I find absolutely fascinating about Bermuda is that, globally around the world is very much admired as a leader in the regulation space. So really, really curious to understand a bit more what magic Bermuda actually has. So Aqsa, turning to you, I'm really interested to hear a little bit more around what the BMA is doing around regulation. But in particular, also, I want to understand a bit more around, your efforts or your focus around digital asset regulation in particular, and how things are going there. Aqsa, over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's really great to be on this panel, so thank you for having me. I think this is a great question. There's definitely a lot that can be said on this. So in Bermuda, we strive to create a safe space for disruption and innovation while evolving to meet the needs of the market that we regulate. So with this, as the BMA, we do recognize that our challenge is that the finish line will always be moving. And in order to kind of move with that, we have to remain agile and keep pace with whatever direction the market's moving and ensure that our regulations kind of continue to remain fit for purpose. So within the FinTech department, I'd basically argue that we operate like a lean startup in that we wear multiple hats, we remain agile in our decision making, and we ensure that we pivot where we need it. And I'm sure my co-panelists would agree to that. So in the past few years, we've accomplished so much. We saw the need for regulations and developed a bespoke digital asset regulatory framework to cater to the market and maintain the high standards of the jurisdiction, particularly as they relate to anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. The framework that we have also includes a sandbox that allows companies to test and build and further develop their compliance programs with enhanced regulatory supervision. So basically, we want companies to grow with us and then grow with that compliance mindset from the very beginning. The sandbox that we've had has been very successful. So we've recently built on that success to provide a test class license or T license. So companies can move from a test or startup phase to a scale-up phase in the M license and then graduate to a class F or full license. I think a key factor of our regulations and kind of that Bermuda magic is that we kind of keep pace with the crypto industry developments. So our regulations are very iterative and they're evolving. We consult often with market participants and ensure that the framework we have kind of remains conducive to innovation. And we take a principles-based approach to evaluating applications that come through our doors. So we're always risk-based. And this becomes really important when we're dealing with new, novel, and innovative business models, particularly in this industry. So since the launch of our regs, we've amended them a few times already. So we introduced a new class of license. So I mentioned the Class T license. We also introduced the Digital Asset Issuance Act 2020. So we regulate the full spectrum of digital assets activity in Bermuda. Since the launch of our regs, we've issued about 11 licenses across a variety of categories, but our role extends so much beyond just regulation. We've met with a significant number of companies, stakeholders, and regulators around the world. And basically what our discussions confirm to us is that there's a need to push the boundaries on like legal and regulatory certainty, both from a financial institution's perspective and then from a consumer perspective. And the other thing that I'll touch on is that part of the Bermuda magic is its proximity to the world and the ability for us to kind of keep pace with global developments. So to do that, we actually do two key things. One is that we maintain interactions and collaboration with cross-border international organizations. So for example, we are active members of the International Organization of Securities Commission, the IOSCO and their FinTech network, as well as the GFIN, which is the Global Financial Innovation Network, which comprises of about 60 regulatory organizations around the world. So with the GFIN, for example, we're members of the Global Sandbox. So this is a sandbox initiative that we have with 23 other regulators. So companies can apply to test their innovations in Bermuda and Australia and the UK, et cetera, all at the same time. This is really interesting for companies. The second thing that we do is that we zero in on joint efforts with other jurisdictions. So this year, what made the news is we've signed a digital asset MOU with the Wyoming Division of Banking, which basically facilitates broader cooperation amongst our jurisdictions, but also allows for us to kind of learn with them, do joint office hours, perhaps transplant one of our staff in Wyoming to understand the learnings that would come from that. And then finally, I should point out that while our entities are regulated locally, they're obligated to comply with all local and foreign international regulations for wherever they're catering their businesses towards. So it's a little bit about Bermuda and sort of the Bermuda magic from a regulatory standpoint.
Fantastic. Totally love it. I mean, the Bermuda magic is magic, really, literally, by the sounds of it. There's so much happening, and I can see that you've got your hands full, which is fantastic. I particularly really like the the focus on taking businesses with you, right, and consulting with businesses, ensuring that some of your sort of regulations that you come up with are really in consultation. You're doing the sandbox, of course, and doing that very, very well. I will come back to you, a little bit later on around some of the process, right, of doing that. But Jerome, I'm really interested because you work quite closely with businesses. So in your view and in your experiences working with the businesses, what sort of activities actually require licenses in Bermuda? I'm quite keen to hear from you around that.
Thanks, Michelle. And again, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on this panel with everyone. And so, yeah, so the businesses that require a license in Bermuda is essentially going to be any company that is operating from Bermuda or seeking to operate from Bermuda with a Bermuda company within the digital asset business space. Now, what does that mean? Anything that business may be doing with a digital asset, which is, as we classify in Bermuda, any asset that is in binary form that can be used to be used in the sort of train of a digital asset business. So for example, as Aqsa mentioned, if you're issuing, if you're an exchange, if you're a wallet, if you're any sort of part of the ecosystem in the digital asset business space, and you're doing that from Bermuda, either with a Bermuda company or with a non-Bermuda company, then that's the type of business that will be needing a license in Bermuda. Now, there are certain exemptions, and we can get into that on a case-by-case basis in discussion with Aqsa and her team. But generally speaking, most businesses will require a license if they are touching or managing or using those assets for the furtherance of their enterprise. And the type of licensing that you can get, Aqsa touched on this as well. There are 3 types of licenses, and the businesses that or the type of license rather that you will require will depend on the business and its maturity, whether it's an early stage business venture, whether it's more than just early stage. Maybe you've been doing it somewhere else and you want to move it to Bermuda, but you're not quite ready to take it to a large scale. And then finally, there's going to be the F license, which is the full license, which is if you're a mature business, you've been doing it before, or you've been through the T and M license that the BMA have to offer. And so really, to really simplify it, as long as you're touching or using or involved with a digital asset in or from within Bermuda, then you need to consider whether or not you need a license. The answer would say is to say yes, you'll need a license, and then we'll work from there.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, thanks, and thanks for kind of just shedding a bit of light around the types of licenses, because I think that's quite important. And I know more recently, again, in Bermuda, there's been a little, sort of tweaks to the licenses as well to encourage innovative businesses to actually come to Bermuda, which is quite encouraging. And this is also international businesses as well, which is what I like. For the more early stage businesses, for example, it'd be interesting to hear from Jeff and Dmitri a bit later on what their experiences have been. But before I go into that, I'm just wondering from your end, Jerome, just quickly, what are the issues that businesses are facing sometimes when they are, trying to get the licenses, for example?
Well, that's a good question. So I think the issue is really more so just understanding the landscape. I think the BMA does a fantastic job in its approach to the licensing application. They're open, they're available to discuss, and as Aqsa says, they're very mindful of the competitive and fast-paced environment that our clients find themselves in. And so, some of the concerns really are just understanding and they're small things. So for example, sometimes a client will not understand, or they'll think, okay, we're going to get an F license or we're going to get an M license. That means we could do everything. And the answer is actually no. You will be licensed for the specific activity that you apply to or that you're trying to do from Bermuda. And that to me sometimes is the biggest challenge, because our clients, they are big picture, they are in an exciting environment. They are doing often on the very cutting edge. And so what may seem to be straightforward to them and say, okay, well, we're just doing an exchange. But then when you dig down into what they're doing, actually they're doing some issuances, maybe they're doing a derivative exchange. And there's a lot of different branches to just that one thing that they're doing. And so I think that's one of the main issues, is just nailing down what it is that the business is actually doing and how it plans to do it, and then making the application on that basis. And like I said, the BMA has a great approach to this. Being licensed in one area isn't the end of the story. You can be licensed to be an issuer or to be a wallet, and then you can morph and get another or add to your license to become an exchange, or to do another aspect of the digital asset business that is applicable to your business. And so it's just conveying that approach to clients, and that it's really getting them to focus on what it is that they're doing and how they can make that application. And some of them get it, some of them don't, and they get it after time. But I think that's one of the main issues, is understanding it. Bermuda, I don't want to talk about issues, let's say, because Bermuda is a great jurisdiction and we don't. But that's one of them, is just understanding the regime and getting your head around it, as it were, in order to make an application that will be accepted. And so far, all the applications that we've been a part of, there's a great dialogue. There will be a submission, there will be answers and questions coming back from the BMA, and there's I think that the BMA are looking to push, and the whole framework of Bermuda is set up so that we are a premier jurisdiction for this space. And we have a regulator that is very much invested in making this jurisdiction a premier destination for this space. And so they are, we have so many clients that come back and say, we really enjoyed that conversation with the team. We really enjoyed the experience because of the approach that they've taken. So that one thing, though, is just sometimes a little bit, takes a little bit of a few calls to kind of let the penny drop, have the penny drop, so as it were, to understanding that actually you can't just say we're going to be an exchange and make an application on that basis. You got to explain the nuts and bolts of it, explain, use the concept of a car. You've got to explain how the engine works, how many times you oil it, what type of oil you use, why is it this type of engine belt and why not this type of engine belt, why, so it's a fascinating process. We enjoy it, and no two clients are the same. No two clients, even if they are both exchanges, they're taking different approaches to that, to implementing that exchange. And so that's what makes it so great. So to answer you, to just bottom out your question again, so sorry for the rambling, but it is just understanding what it is that you're doing and how you're going to go about explaining that in an application to the BMA.
Yeah, no, fantastic, Jerome. I mean, it's not rambling on. I think this is really helpful tips for businesses, because I'm sure a lot of businesses think about, oh, how do I get into Bermuda? What are the steps? So I think having that understanding right from the beginning will help a lot of businesses navigate this space. And what I really like from what you were saying is the flexibility that the BMA has as a regulator, for you to be able to actually walk through the process, ask the questions, interact with sort of legal firms like yourselves and the BMA to actually get you to the place where you need to be. It might take a little bit of time sometimes, but it's actually worth investing into that time so you can actually get the right results at the end. So the flexibility, the personalization, again, is very, very important, and the ability to be able to, kind of make changes, right? Is also quite important. Now, I want to hear from the businesses themselves. So we've got two fantastic businesses here with us. And I'm very excited to hear from you because I like to see it and hear it from people who are actually doing it. If I'm turning to you now, you've been, full license and everything. You're enjoying yourself there, sitting and enjoying the sun in Bermuda, and with the rest of us are really jealous. But I really want to hear from you, to understand, what's your experience has been? How have you interacted with the BMA? What's that relationship looking like? Any tips that you might have for businesses? Jeff, over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be on this panel with my panel members, some of whom I've been on panels before. So I know that we're all very capable and smart. Look, you've asked about the Bermuda magic and what success would look like. And I suspect your audience, our audience today, is a mix of people who are in industry and those who are looking at Bermuda as a potential jurisdiction. I think success really for a company or getting a license here in Bermuda requires three things that have to converge in the same time and space and place. That would be a FinTech friendly government that's quite forward leaning about this space. That would be a premier regulated jurisdiction that's well regarded globally, and a capable, legitimate digital asset business. Those three things, and that's as simple as that. Now, let me pull that thread a little bit when I talk about what legitimate digital asset business means. If you're a business who does not put any time or effort into KYC, ATF, anti-money laundering policies, procedures, if you're a business that doesn't even collect KYC documentation, if you're a business that has an executive or board of directors that do not know what your business risks are, and they cannot evidence that, you do not have robust cybersecurity, you will not get a license in Bermuda. You will not get a license in a top tier jurisdiction. Bermuda does have a FinTech friendly government. That was made clear in 2018 when we passed the original Digital Asset Act. We have a premier regulated jurisdiction. So look, let me say first off, I'm Bermudian, so I'm pro Bermuda, but I'm going to back up what I'm saying here with some pretty stark facts. And the first one is, we have been highly regulated as a country, as a jurisdiction, from Standard & Poor's on down. We, in every sector, the Financial Action Task Force reviewed us and we got top marks. So we're not talking just about how we are rated and if we are premier in a digital asset space. I'm talking about ILS, banking, insurance, reinsurance, and on down. We're an international business hub here. So for those of you who don't know Bermuda, please know that we have been given top marks by FATF. We're a premier jurisdiction, which is why our regulations look so robust, and there is such an important partnership with our regulator. So again, if you're not a legitimate actor in this space and you just want to move fast and break things, you need to go to a different jurisdiction. Bittrex Global was licensed in September by the BMA, and as you know, we have a full license. And I can tell you, as the chief compliance officer who started once we became operational, the relationship with the BMA, in particular with the FinTech team, and additionally the prudential teams and the AML ATF teams, has been fantastic. And we are both learning as we go. As Aqsa said, some of the frustrations or what we're conscious about are the finish lines and how they continue to move. Well, frankly, that's just market demand. We could not anticipate the year that we've had back in September once we were licensed. We want to do new products because that's what the market says we should be doing. We want to compete. Bittrex Global has a significant compliance and cybersecurity package, which really sets us apart from other exchanges. So our experience has been very positive. It's been a very a steep learning curve. But again, I think together, achieving that regulatory clarity that I think Jerome was discussing earlier, that companies and the regulators sometimes struggle with, because this is a new law for this jurisdiction. And so carving out what that clarity looks like and the interpretations of what certain things mean in products, et cetera, has been a really great learning curve. I can tell you these things, because we want to, again, move fast with the market, things are not easy, but we have to make sure that we are really guided by the regulators and setting up where the boundaries are so that we can move fast, but move fast safely. And as a chief compliance officer, that's frankly what my job is, to help the business grow, but for it to grow safely. You're going to have any company coming here. You will have someone who's assigned to you from the regulator that you will be in touch with daily if you wish. They're responsive, they're informative, and they're easy to work with. And frankly, they help educate you along the way, because they are staffed up with subject matter experts in digital asset legislation, regulations, and policy. I view them as capable partners to help me, not as someone who's checking my homework. So we've had a really positive experience, and we really look forward here at Bittrex Global to growing in the next year or two and working with the regulator and the government as well to help shape what we think this landscape and the ecosystem can look like.
Fantastic. No, Jeff, thank you very much. I have to agree with you 100% that we definitely have a very fintech friendly government. You know, even on our board, the government board that I sit in Bermuda, you know, there's such a drive, there's such an ambition and a vision to really create the environment, right, for innovation to happen across Bermuda. So that's totally fantastic. Love your comments around, you know, kind of being able to move along safely. I think that's quite important. You know, cybersecurity, you're absolutely right. I think if you don't have a credible product, or you're trying to move and break things really, really fast, definitely Bermuda isn't really the market for you. But now I want to hear a little bit more from Dmitri, because you've got the T license now, and I'm sure that's quite exciting for you and your team. Really interested to hear from you what your thoughts are, you know, what 24 Exchange is about, and what your ambitions are for the future. Dmitri, please, over to you.
Thank you for inviting me to this conference. I'm Dmitri Galinov. I'm CEO of 24 Exchange. Just background about our exchange. We are an electronic trading platform. Our main clients are very, very big banks, global banks, hedge funds, and asset managers. We came from foreign exchange background, so we've been in started Bermuda over 2 years ago, trading foreign exchange with big banks, and very recently we added crypto capabilities to trade physical crypto as well as crypto derivatives. And you know, as what mentioned before, in Bermuda, it would require a licensing, and we went for a T license for Bermuda Monetary Authority. And I'll tell you, we had very, very positive experience. I in my career, and I'm working in electronic trading in very regulated environment for over 20 years. I work with regulators in Asia and United States and so forth. And my interaction with Bermuda Monetary Authority and our team has been very, very smooth. And the reason we came to Bermuda in the first place, you know, some of the reasons mentioned by other folks, but for us is that it's a very solid jurisdiction. You know, the way we view it is as a largest overseas territory, United Kingdom. It's, you know, and, you know, a lot of even AML and KYC checks and balances are very similar to, you know, United Kingdom. And what we find is that our clients received it, which are very big banks, they perceived it very, very well. They like that fact. Another point about Bermuda licensing process is that is true. You have to, when you go for a license, you have to explain, you know, what are you doing, why are you doing it, how's your previous experience qualify you to operate in our, in our instance, in a crypto exchange, and, what are the risks and how you can mitigate it. And when you prove all of that to Bermuda Moderator, you receive a license. This license gives comfort to clients to say, well, so very strong jurisdiction and regulator looked at all our processes and said that they can operate in this particular area, which differentiate us very significantly from other exchanges. For example, some other competitors, they just registered in some not a strong jurisdiction, or they get a different license. For example, a lot of people have a money transmitter license and they operate in exchange. To me, it's like, well, if you have a heart problem, you go to a licensed heart surgeon. You want to go to a licensed heart surgeon. Do you go to a dentist instead, who is licensed dentist? I mean, he might be really, really good dentist, but if you have a heart issue, you got to go to the properly licensed individual, and that's what I think the exchange license from a proper regulator and proper jurisdiction, gives us. So. Been quite happy, with the whole process. And the last thing is, for us is that it's outside the beautiful island. It's actually physical proximity to two big financial centers that we operate on, which are London and New York. It's very easy flight, and beautiful airport, and and the whole atmosphere. So just logistically, operationally, it's kind of very, very easy for us to operate in the country. The currency is pegged to US dollar. The banking industry is connected to the World Bank, so we can receive payments from global banks and we can send payments anywhere in the world. So overall, the process has been very positive and very quick, but yet very, very thorough.
Yes, no, fantastic, Dmitri. Thank you. Yeah, I really like your points around the practicalities, right? Because those are really important for business. You being able to kind of access those markets, London, New York, I think is very, very important for business. So Bermuda isn't necessarily just, kind of an island as people think. There's so much connections, right, between the island and other parts of the world, which makes it quite special. Now, just turning a little bit, we've heard quite a lot of the positives, and really exciting things that are happening and businesses really doing very well. With the BMA and everything. I'm going to, twist the question a little bit and look more holistically around the industry. We're obviously seeing quite a lot of institutional interest now around things like cryptocurrency, institutional players starting to play in this market and quite a bit of interest there. I'm just wondering, back to you, Aqsa, I think, what do you foresee to be the big issue within sort of the financial services sector? And how do we start to look at regulation post-COVID, right? We are moving away now from a very difficult time. Of course, we're probably going to have to live with COVID, right, for quite some time yet. So, what are your kind of tips around how to deal with some of the critical issues facing the finance sector at the moment?
I think, we are constantly at a point where we need to balance consumer protection and market access in this sector. So what I really want to highlight is that this fine line is not unique to the crypto sector at all, right? We're currently seeing it played out in retail investing with the likes of the recent meme stocks, whether in the traditional or crypto sector. So our regulatory framework is very much risk-based, and as such, companies are required to be prudent in their operations. So for example, this broad obligation can translate into consumer education on complex products, such that consumers understand the risks in the product they're investing in, or the legal implications of running a global platform. There's also specific guidelines that we have to ensure consumer protection where warranted. So, for example, we have, for companies dealing with digital asset custody, we have the Digital Asset Custody Code of Practice that outlines measures for safeguards for custodians that they can take to ensure that client assets are protected. Increasingly in an environment in post-COVID where the cybersecurity crime has actually went up. At a broader level, where the company does not hold client assets, adequate risk disclosures and fee disclosure should be in place so that the customer has an idea of what they're agreeing to and opting into. Part of our remit is also to help find overall the balance. The financial services sector, we believe, has to be regulated so that customers have access in a safe and stable manner. This is also a process of continuously refining our regulations and supervisory processes, monitoring that market and making adjustments where actually needed. So overall, I think recently with COVID also in the crypto sector, we saw that there was a little bit of a bull market in digital assets. So in this environment, consumers are excited to find buying opportunities, right? So with these consumers, we encourage them to deal with prudentially regulated exchanges that have obligations like minimum capital, segregation of assets, risk management, and the like. And we also encourage digital asset businesses to talk with regulators to understand the benefits of regulation, not only from the perspective of consumer protection, but also from the perspective of the firm's ability to withstand the risks that come with a market like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I just forgot to mention earlier on, everybody, please do feel free to post your questions in the Q&A and we'll be able to get to the questions. Very, very interesting discussion. I couldn't agree with you more, Aqsa. I mean, this is not necessarily an issue within just the crypto space. In fact, we've seen that bull run really happen quite often within the crypto space, and there's a lot of institutional interest, like I said. But interested to hear from also the business and everybody else who's on the panel, what your thoughts are around, okay, what are the challenges or opportunity actually that we foresee now moving post-COVID? Yeah, anybody wants to take it? Maybe we go back to you, Jerome.
Yeah, so I think the opportunity is going to be to continue to push Bermuda as a premier jurisdiction. I think everyone has touched on this in their response, and that overarchingly the market or what the goal is to run a business that is successful, but also which gives their customers or gives customers ultimately confidence. And so whatever the sort of new cutting edge is going to be in this space, I think we're moving along. We started off with just buying sort of crypto, and now we're moving into exchange, and now we're moving into different forms, sort of like NFTs, and what else is on the perimeter or in the future. I think that the overarching goal is going to be to place Bermuda on the forefront and to say, to all those who are here, Bermuda's legislation is flexible to facilitate all of these things. The legislation was crafted in a way that is future looking. And if there needs to be a tweak to it, we have seen where the BMA, in conjunction with the with the legislature, has gone back and has made changes to the legislation to tweak it where it needs to be, so that it can be more future-proof, as it were. And so I think the opportunity for us as a jurisdiction, and coming from that perspective, is going to be to keep talking about and showcasing our ability to be nimble, our ability to create certainty, both for the customer of these businesses and for the businesses themselves. I mean, look, we're in a world today where businesses want to be regulated because that gives them the validity, that gives them the comfort that when they're dealing with their customers or dealing with other jurisdictions or other businesses, that there's this protection, there's this certainty that they're not going to disappear overnight with funds, as we've seen in some businesses. Early on in the sort of issuance space, there was a lot of fraud, and thankfully none of that happened from a Bermuda company. And so we have done a good job in putting in place the good guardrails, as it were, which is our legislative, our acts and our regulator. And so for our jurisdiction, the benefit and the future is going to be pushing that and continuing to trumpet, as it were, our qualities in that space.
Fantastic, thanks, Jerome. And Jeff, I mean, what does the future look like for you, right? Any sort of massive opportunities you're thinking about right now, given what's happening in the market? And of course, same question to you, Dmitri, after Jeff. Please, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, holistically, there are both opportunities and there are some pitfalls that we have to be aware of. Our opportunities post-COVID are quite obvious, and we are forced, the world, frankly, to sort of isolate and interact using technology. So what better time for FinTech, virtual currency companies to be alive and be healthy and already have all of those systems, cyber, compliance, risk management, governance baked into your product already. So there's a bigger opportunity for us to continue to grow on that, to continue to improve our relationship with the regulation of the industry itself. Some of the pitfalls, frankly, fall, I think, upon the industry as a whole. There's this idea in crypto of this ethical relativism. Well, it's crypto, so it's younger, it's cooler. We kind of break rules a bit. I don't think that should be acceptable anymore within the industry. I think if we want, as an industry, to legitimize ourselves, we have to show that that type of bad actor, those companies who are doing that, who want to move fast and break things, are not going to be allowed to play with us. So those are some of the pitfalls that I see, but that's really more of a holistic whole of industry address. But our opportunities are pretty clear given the unfortunate set of circumstances in COVID, and we're primed to take advantage of that.
Great. Dmitri, your thoughts?
Thank you very much. And post-COVID, for our company, opportunities are, we would like to expand into new areas of operations. So a couple of areas that we're working on. One is that we expanding into additional asset classes. So to learn from, you can learn from crypto trading. Why, for example, somebody can trade Bitcoin 24/7, but not Tesla or Microsoft or, or Vodafone and something like that. So we are applying, the lessons where our next step is to register for a stock exchange in the United States and basically operate 24/7 stock exchange the same way we operate foreign exchange platform or cryptocurrency platform. And so especially with COVID, there is a significant increased participation of worldwide and stock trading, and we think that would be a good opportunity for us to extend it to the next step. And again, we prefer, as mentioned before, there are some companies that try to do, stock trading outside the United States without the proper SEC license. And guess what? SEC doesn't like it, and doesn't have the same protections that somebody, that would be licensed to do so. Another area that we're looking at is retail. So we, our company, as I said before, we currently only deal with institutional, very, very large global institutional players. And we are looking to, we think that now that we build the platform for the institutions, we can give the same high quality platform that, doesn't go down if there's volatility, or you can't do a trade if there is a big volume of transactions. It's very reliable, very fast. It doesn't go down. And so we would like to give the same platform that we give to Goldman Sachs's and UBS's and JP Morgan's of the world to people like you and me to transact. And this is something, we're very excited in the future to work with Bermuda Monetary Authority. We actually, as was mentioned, if we decide to go into new areas, we would have to properly change our license and add functionality and explain how we do the risk control, how we're going to get the asset safes, and all that stuff. But I think just go back to your question. We are very excited by the fact that there is post-COVID, there is really increased participation of everybody in investing. Whether it's cryptocurrencies or stocks, and on an ongoing 24/7 basis. And we're excited about offering infrastructure, safe, secure, properly licensed for people to do that.
Fantastic. I mean, we really have heard it all, ladies and gentlemen. Please, as I say, do feel free to put in your questions. At the end, Jerome, thanks so much for that overview. Thanks to everybody who's chimed, given us your feedback. As you've heard from the panel, fantastic panel, you know, there's massive opportunities in Bermuda. The BMA is flexible, you know, very forward thinking. The government is very supportive within this industry. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to be able to come and operate in Bermuda, you know, follow the necessary steps. And don't forget that, you know, with everything, I think it's, you know, there's massive opportunities, right, in a jurisdiction that you might not have thought of as somewhere for you to be able to take your innovative businesses. So for me, I mean, in terms of looking towards the future, there's many things I think we have to take into consideration. More digital, the world is shifting into the digital economy, and there's no avoiding it really. And it's very important, I think, even for regulators and governments to actually understand this space and to almost kind of work with each other and learn from jurisdictions like Bermuda to understand, you know, how have they got to where they are today with the regulation, and where are we moving in terms of the future, especially now that we have to think about recovery, especially now that we have to think about how do we build back better, how do we ensure that everybody is included in the system. The businesses you've heard from today are very innovative, they're very creative, they're very responsible. So, you know, they're able to think about the responsibilities they have as a business, ensuring cybersecurity, as we've heard from Jeff or Dmitri, you know, coming up with the next new innovations, and that climate, you know, providing that environment and that climate for these businesses to thrive is very important. And regulation is very much at the heart of it. Future of regulation is going to look, I think, slightly different, but we do all have to work together. You know, we have to consult and we have to ensure that we are in conversation with all the different stakeholders to come up with regulation that actually works and doesn't stifle innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having us all. Thank you to my panel. Thank you to the government of Bermuda and to everybody who's organized the Tech Summit. Absolutely brilliant to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.